Welcome to the Note Investor Podcast. We'll guide you through the ups and downs of note investing and teach you all about the nitty-gritty details of the business that other people won't talk about. Your host, Dan Deppen, is a former aerospace engineer and product manager who transitioned away from cubicle life to full-time note investing in 2018. Our website is www.fusionnotes.com, where you can subscribe to this podcast, comment, and find links to other information on note investing.
All right, hi everyone. Welcome to Note Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Deppen, and today I'm joined by Dickie Baldwin from Baldwin Advisory Group. So Dickie, how's it going?
Doing wonderful in this cold weather.
Probably not as cold in Texas as Colorado, but I don't know.
Well, we had a cold front today. It got down to about 90.
Down to about 90. Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm looking out the window. There's snow all over the golf course.
Well,
right
I'm looking at my golf course and they're out playing right now.
Yeah, I'm jealous. But,
Come on
down.
Welcome
back. So yeah, I wanted to have you back to talk about some of the new stuff.
Absolutely.
You're doing, and I know a lot of your products and things have kind of evolved a little bit and expanded. So yes, maybe it's just kind of a quick retouch on you and what you do, and then we can kind of dive into some of the other stuff.
Absolute. Well, as Dan said, Dickie Baldwin, Baldwin Advisory Group. I'm located in Houston, Texas. Been in the industry approximately 40 years. Retired in 2018. Got bored and started Baldwin Advisory Group because I had turned 70 and I figured, hey, it's time to go play golf every day. But I'm not like you, Dan. I don't get a hole in one every time I go out and play. So I
don't quite do that. That's Kim. That was Kim Jong-il or whoever that was that did that. But yeah.
So at any rate, being in the industry for so long and realizing the biggest issue in investing, especially for newer people in the beginning, is not knowing where to go to get something done. They get on the internet, they don't know who they're going to be looking up. They may or may not run into a reputable company to do all the due diligence that we need in order to be successful in investing. So starting BAG, I put it to where they can do BPOs, they can do title searches, they can find a realtor, they can do servicing, they can do self-directed IRAs. And so Baldwin Advisory Group goes by BAG, B-A-G, and the slogan is one bag for all your real estate services. So that's sort of it in a nutshell, and we can get into the meat and potatoes of it. If I can show you the website real quick. All right. Well, this is the BAG website. As the slogan says, one bag for all your real estate services. If you ever need to call me, there's my phone number, 936-447-4170. There's my email, dbaldwin@baldwinadvisorygroup.com. In this website, and what I like to do, Dan, is highlight a couple of the services and go into a little more detail about the different things that you can do in each of these two arenas. A BPO, for the brand new person that doesn't know what a BPO is, that's a broker price opinion. That's basically where a third-party vendor has vetted agents that are able to go out and take pictures of the subject property. In the report, they'll have 3 recently sold comps in the neighborhood and 3 recent or current listings in the neighborhood. With that information and taking pictures of the subject, they're able to get an as-is value. Well, in the BPO valuation, there's other products that are available that you may consider using. And Dan, I know that you've ordered quite a few through me, and it's called a property condition report. And What is a property condition report? Well, that's where an agent will go out, take current pictures of the subject, answer multiple questions such as, does the property appear to be occupied? Yes or no. Is it standard for the neighborhood? Yes or no. Is there any visible damage? Yes or no. These are all questions that are answered on the form. The difference between a property condition report and a BPO is there is no value and no comps to be used.
Mm-hmm.
So as you and I were discussing, if you know that there's a lot of equity in a property, you're not as concerned about the value, but you want to know what the property actually looks like, not a Zillow or a Google map, but a real-time picture, then a property condition report obviously is the way to go.
Yeah, for me, like what I order kind of varies deal to deal depending on what I care about, right? So if it's let's say a non-performing loan where there's a good chance I'm going to end up with the property, then in that case, I want the full BPO because I know there's a good chance I'm going to end up with the property. So my ROI in the deal is going to really hinge on what the value actually is. But yeah, to your point, there are other ones where, especially right now, a lot of loans have equity. So if I'm buying the performing note and there's a lot of equity in it, I still need to get eyes on it because, I've heard crazy stories of where people send someone out to look at the property and it's gone because it was demoed or, a big tree fell on it or something like that. But I'm not really sensitive to the value. As long as the property looks like it's in good shape, it's occupied. I know there's tons of equity there. It's a performing note. With equity, I'm probably never going to end up with that property. Anyways, yes, what I order deal to deal just varies on the the type of note and what I'm interested in.
Absolute. And another way that a property condition report becomes beneficial is, let's assume that you have a performing note and they are making payments like clockwork and they have month in, month out, month in, month out, but you live in Colorado and the property is in Georgia and you haven't seen it probably ever, or at least a BPO picture from a year ago, you may want to do a property condition report just to put eyes on it. Even though you're getting paid regularly, you don't know if they're taking care of that house or not.
Yeah, I mean, that's good as an early warning. I mean, it's not, I haven't really been good about this to date, but it's not a bad idea to even just periodically, maybe once a year or even, twice a year, if you can do it cheap enough, just put eyes on everything to see what's going on and keep an eye on it. So sometimes you get good surprises too. Like, I had one lately where borrower had kind of stopped paying and gotten really flaky and noticed that they built a fence and had put a bunch of money into the property. So yeah, you can learn all kinds of interesting things when you keep eyes on it.
Absolute. And for a minimum charge to have a professional go out and through a third party company on a good form, instead of trying to call Craigslist and hoping that you can get somebody to go out, using a professional vendor is the way to go. And that obviously is one of the products that BAG has to offer. And real quick, if you ever do need a BPO or a property inspection report and you're not quite sure what each of those items are, in the BPO, there's a more detailed explanation of each of the products. And there's two ways to order these products for BAG. You can either come to the website, get the order form, complete it, let me know if it's a BPO, if you want exterior, interior. I also do full appraisals, which I want to hit on real quickly. Mm-hmm. Put the code in, hit submit. That comes to me immediately, and the product is ordered.
Oh, the other thing too to mention, just for folks who might be brand new, I've talked about this before, but yeah, when you're buying a note, are doing due diligence on a note, you can't bother the buyer or the borrower, and you're not going to be able to get inside. So most of them are going to be exterior only unless there's a special circumstance where it's vacant and you have access or something like that.
Absolute. My website is in the process of being redone, and the order form is being expanded. There is another product in the BPO arena, and it's called a hybrid appraisal. And it's not a full-blown appraisal, but it's not a BPO done by a local agent. What happens in the hybrid appraisal, which can be done both exterior and interior, I've got a lot of lenders that utilize this product even before they actually loan the money on a hard money loan. What happens is an agent will go out and take pictures, be it exterior or interior. Then it is given to a licensed appraiser who does what's called a desktop appraisal. It's a little more in depth than what a traditional BPO is done by an agent, because it's done by an appraiser who is taught how to do valuations. There's more calculations in it. So it's not the full cost of a appraisal, which can run you, especially in a commercial, $2,500, $3,000. On a residential, you're talking about probably $500, $600. Whereas the hybrid appraisal is much less and a little more expensive than what the traditional BPO is.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea in some cases, especially where you might end up with the property. Because what I've noticed on some of mine is the agent will pull the comps, then the agent will look at the exterior condition and they'll make some deductions for damage. But what they're kind of doing implicitly is assuming the interior is pristine. They're not making any deductions for the interior because they can't see that. But in reality, if you end up foreclosing or the borrower signs off on a cash for keys, the inside's usually pretty rough. So that's where I kind of make my own adjustments sometimes on the BPOs, but it sounds like the hybrid appraisal might capture more of that. So
absolute. And the reason that the lenders use it a lot of times is they will the buyer will give me a scope of work, because most of these hard money loans are for a rehab, fix and flip. Mm-hmm. And so they will give a scope of work, which is given to the appraiser, which is taken in consideration when they're doing a as is value and an after repair value. So it's a very, very good item. The other thing that you really need to do as an investor in the due diligence is a title search. Title search is where either online or an abstractor will find any taxes, liens, judgments, bankruptcies, anything that may be against the property. And most note investors will do what's called an O&E or a title search. O&E meaning owner and encumbrances. And they will do a current owner search. It's crucial that you do a title search to find these hidden pieces of hair that are going to cloud the title.
Oh, and I can't tell you how many notes I get bids accepted on, and I find title issues. And sometimes the sellers can get them worked out, or I have a lot of notes that I spent a lot of money on due diligence on that I wasn't able to close because the title was in terrible shape. So that is super, super common. If you're buying notes, you cannot assume that the title is going to be clear, because those things reveal all sorts of problems all the time. In fact, when Chris 70's Facebook group, we were joking about that the other day, where people were posting memes of people, before the title search and after, where it usually looks really pretty before and sometimes looks pretty ugly afterwards. So.
Absolute. I mean, it's yes, there is cost in doing your due diligence, but the couple of $100 that you may spend between the BPO and a title search spending that money could literally save you thousands and thousands of dollars. Otherwise, and you want to do it before you actually purchase the asset.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I consider that kind of a cost of doing business. I forget exactly what the number was, but last year when I did my books, I think I spent a couple $1,000s on BPOs and title searches on assets that I couldn't close on because I found problems.
Right.
But if I had closed on those with the flaws, it would have been much, much worse. So you kind of have to just plan on that. It's one of the costs of doing business, I think, because
Absolutely.
sometimes you're going to buy these and find flaws and not be able to close on the deal.
Well, one of the things that I've seen, Dan, is because the cost between a current owner search and what's called a two owner search is really not that much difference, because a current owner search is $85, and that's with all the documents being included. A two owner search is $100 with all the documents being included. And the difference between the two reports is, obviously, like it says, the current owner search takes care of current, whereas the two owner, you go further back into the history to make sure that there's no other hiccups on that particular property.
Mhm.
So those things are crucial. But as in the BPO, there's other things that you can do in the title search that are not part of the title search. And that's water and sewer, because that's not typically a recorded item. Keeping in mind that a title search, O&E, is recorded. Anything that's recorded in the county courthouse, etc. Water and sewer is not. Municipality searches aren't part of it. Code violations. These are all other things that you need to know about. There's some counties, and you probably know better than I do, Dan, where a water and sewer can make or break a deal.
Oh, big time, especially so on if you're buying a contract for deed, it's not like this everywhere in the country, but in a lot of counties. If you buy a contract for deed, you're on the deed to the property, and they require the water bill to be tied to the deed owner.
Correct.
The borrower is on the hook contractually to pay for it. However, if they run up a massive water bill and don't pay it, or get angry and just turn the water on and leave it, I've heard horror stories of like $10,000 water bills, which can be a really huge deal. So if somebody, if something like that's going on, you want to know before you buy it. And even if it's a mortgage, right? Or if the borrower's got a big delinquent water bill, even if you're not going to end up on the hook for it, it gives you more information into their borrower profile, right? Like I've seen performing loans where borrowers were delinquent on other stuff. So if you look at just the loan itself, everything might look clean. But if they don't pay their water bill and they're behind on taxes and other things, that can be an indication of what you're going to be dealing with down the road.
Absolute. And you just reminded me of a scenario of how important a title search is, even when you may own the property. I was at a convention in Dallas, and a young man came up to me and said that he had recently bought a performing note, and the note was in Dallas, and the homeowner was just paying like clockwork. Well, this young man didn't know what a title search was, so he went and ordered a title search, and during the conference, it was such quick turnaround, he was able to get the report. Come to find out, that property didn't have an escrow, and even though the homeowner was paying like clockwork the mortgage, he had not paid taxes in the last several years.
I've run into more than one borrower where they just don't pay taxes. It's like, it's just not going to happen. So
I know. And you got to remember that if those taxes are due, it's on you.
Yeah. And the taxes are in front of the mortgage. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
and
mortgage might be
so
position 1, but the taxes are like position 0. Yeah, that has to be dealt with, or you're gonna get wiped out at some point.
absolute. And I also recommend on the title search, if you do a title search, let's say in December of 2020, and you're getting payments and everything, I would suggest possibly doing what's called an update to make sure that there's no other liens or judgments that may have been filed against the property unbeknownst to you. And what an update is we take the last O&E report, typically if it's within 6 months to a year, from that date to the present. And it's about the less than half of what an O&E report is, but it's another good way to protect your property. Which brings me to another product. Let's assume that a title search shows that there had been delinquent taxes, and all of a sudden they're paid. The title search doesn't tell you who paid those taxes. I've got a product that we call it a tax deep dive that can go in and find out if possibly that property had been in a tax sale that may not have been recorded, and it will show what the redemption period is, as well as who possibly bought those delinquent taxes.
That's a good point, because tax sales are scary because you don't always know.
Correct.
I had a loan one time that kind of got away from me. There had been a tax sale and I completely freaked out and panicked. Now, usually there's a redemption period, so I was able to get it taken care of. But, if there is a tax sale, it's not always obvious right away.
Correct. And at times it may not show up on the O&E report, because keep in mind the O&E title search is recorded items. Now, when you get into like New Jersey, school taxes are not part of an O&E report in some townships.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes. And so there's no set rules around the country. You can have a state with a whole bunch of counties, and even the counties aren't the same mentality.
Right.
They do things differently. So there's not a checklist other than you got to do evaluation or property condition report. You've got to do an O&E, at least a current owner. And especially if it's in the Midwest, and typically that's where the water and sewer are the biggest issues, it seems.
Yeah, I know a lot of the Ohio areas, they are like, I know like Cincinnati and Toledo.
Absolute. So it's just not title search. It's just not BPO. There's other things that are part of each of these categories that you really, really need to be made aware of. And
Yeah, the other
fortunately,
one I like to do is to call the city code enforcement, because sometimes there's a code violation or they've got issues ongoing, but it hasn't actually turned into a lien that would show up on the O&E report. But sometimes you can find other problems that are brewing there as well.
Yeah, and what happens is, since water and sewer a lot of times isn't recorded, but when a property is sold, then that title company will do the searches. If it's a traditional closing for a sale of a property, they will go back and get that water and sewer. And I ran into a situation where the client says, well, the report didn't show all this water and sewer. And then I explained to them that's not recorded.
Right.
And there's a difference between a title search and a title company. And people get that confused.
Yeah, I've sold REOs before, where the borrower left behind a water bill that basically got taken out of my proceeds at the closing when
And
we sold. Yeah.
you didn't have a clue.
Well, no, actually, this last one I'm thinking of, I was aware of it,
Oh, okay.
but since everything was in flight, I didn't want to pay the city and have it not register and then have it be an issue. So I'm like, if the title company's going to figure out the amount and roll it in, we'll just take care of it there.
Do it then.
Easier, yeah.
Well, let's go on some other things that BAG can do to help you as an
Sure.
investor. Here's a little section called REO in Notes. And I'm able to connect buyers and sellers of distressed assets. And the way that I do this, and I would ask everybody that's going to be watching this podcast to go to this form and I collect the date, company information. You let me know if you're a buyer or a seller, if you're private or institutional. If you want notes, you check off if you want performing, non-performing, contract for deed, if you're wanting residential, commercial. As I said, my website is in the process of being redone and this order form is going to be expanded, but it will have seconds and other note type products on it.
And that's big because the number one thing people struggle with is finding places to go buy notes.
Absolutely.
And I know I do as well. And it's interesting as I put out videos and podcasts on various subjects, I go back and look at the numbers. And I did a video about 2 years ago on where to buy mortgage notes. And there were like 12,000 views, which is way higher than everything else. So people should, like pay attention to this part because this can help you with like
Absolutely.
number one thing that people struggle with.
And here's the important thing: the product, yes, but put what states you're wanting to invest in. Most investors do not want to deal nationwide.
Mhm.
They're 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 states. So, and I'll explain why this is important in just a second. If you've got any comments you want to let me know about, put them in here. If you're an REO buyer, then you can also let me know if you want REOs, residential, commercial, if you want them individual, bulk, what type of REO. Once again, the states. Why is this form so important? Dan, let's say that you completed this form and you wanted a non-performing note in Idaho. And one of my sellers that has asked me to help them sell their assets has a note in Idaho.
A non-performing note in Idaho makes me think of like the Unabomber cabin or something like that. But I think of
Well, what happens is if you want Idaho and a seller has it, I simply put you directly with that seller, which is huge.
Yeah, because you're more connecting people than
Absolutely.
in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get in the middle of negotiations. I don't get documents. I don't tell you what color the house is.
Yeah.
Any of that, because I've learned through 40 years of doing this, if you try and be the middle person and talk to each of the other parties, it gets messed up.
Yeah.
So I built BAG to put you directly with whoever that vendor happens to be, which leads me into another great point on how BAG works. Except for the BPOs and the title searches, those are the only things that I actually collect on from you, the investor. Reason being is these, number one, are private labeled under the BAG logo. Secondly, I am the customer with that vendor. What does that mean? A typical investor may do 5 to 10 broker price opinions and title searches a year. I do hundreds every month. So what does that do? I call it strength in numbers, because I'm able to go into some of the larger vendors that typically won't do a one-off deal, but because of the volume that I'm able to do, everybody is able to take advantage of that situation.
Yeah, that's cool. So that's always one of the challenges when you're starting out and you're going to have like one note or two notes. You don't have any critical mass with your vendors. So it's kind of nice to leverage the wider buying power. Yeah.
And because of the volume that I do, you're basically able to get it at as if you were doing a bulk purchase in the pricing. So that is huge. Those, as I said, those are the only two things that BAG actually collects on from you, the investor. Everything else that is in here and all these other different services, and we'll go through these real quick. If you want to originate a seller finance mortgage, I put you directly with my RMLO who can originate a seller finance mortgage compliant to Dodd-Frank. So all you have to do is email me, tell me that you're wanting to do a seller finance in whatever state. I'll put that information together, make an introduction by email to the vendor and CCing you, the client, and making an introduction to where from that point on, you can talk directly with whoever that vendor happens to be. I'm upfront about it. When it's all said and done, you pay the vendor, and I do have a referral agreement with the vendors.
Yeah, that makes it a lot cleaner to do it that way.
Absolute. And everybody's going to say, well, it's going to cost money to go through BAG. No, it doesn't, because number one, I don't charge for a subscription fee or any nonsense that is happening in the industry. I'm putting 40 years of experience together with the top-notch vendors in the country. And I tell my vendors, look, I don't want to be on your 401k plan. I don't want to be part of your major medical and dental plan. All I want to do is be able to bring you clients that chances are you never, ever would have heard of. And so I'm building your business and I'm helping you, the individual investor, out.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Property preservation. What is property preservation? You mentioned vacant properties. Well, the preservation is to improve the condition of vacant properties and make sure that there's no damage or anything when you're trying to sell it or repair it. I recently put out a post, and I believe you saw it, of a water faucet coming out of a wall with icicles dripping off of it.
Yeah.
And I posted it all over LinkedIn and Facebook, reminding investors that have vacant property in the northern areas that they need to winterize. And that is typical of a property preservation. But just to show you some of the things, changing door locks, putting on a lock box, slide bolts, doing glazing of windows, boarding of windows, removing debris, trash.
Animal removal. That's an interesting one.
Landscaping, capping water lines, winterizations, inspections. I mean, these are all property preservations where all you have to do is call me. I've got a network all over the country. You tell me that, and Dan, you've used it before. I've got a property, 123 Elm Street in Toledo, Ohio, and I need the locks changed, or I need it cleaned out. So once again, I have built a complete network of contractors around the country, which I will be able to introduce you directly to. I have various money lenders, both private and hard money, as well as, and like Dan, I'm going to introduce you tomorrow. I've got a traditional lender also for the traditional conventional loans, and they
Uh-huh.
are nationwide. I have a title and escrow company that is nationwide. I can do title curative and release tracking. Collateral review. What is collateral review? That's when you have this big stack of papers, and especially if you're brand new, you're not really knowing what you're looking at except a whole bunch of papers. Well, I have a service to where they can go through and basically let you know what you do have, what you don't have, and what you should have in order to make an intelligent decision on purchasing that asset.
And that's always a really good idea. Even though you get the title or the O&E report, I often have questions on those. And I joke that I know enough about the documentation and title to be dangerous, but I always
Correct.
like to have an attorney review everything to make sure I didn't miss anything. Like sometimes I've seen, different states will have their own rules. So there may have been a problem like with contract for deeds. North Carolina has some specific language that has to be in there, and that didn't Harbor Portfolio's template didn't follow that. So there can be all kinds of stuff that even if you get the title report and it's clean, our attorney who's knowledgeable in that state may be able to notice other things.
Absolute. Assignments and recordings. Obviously, whenever you buy a note, it's the transaction is done with an assignment, and then that assignment needs to be recorded. So I'm able to offer you that service. I'm able to store original documents instead of you having it in a box in your bedroom closet.
Yeah,
All the
hopefully people
original
aren't doing
files
that.
can be handled. I'm sorry?
I said hopefully people aren't doing that.
Well, you'd be
If they got a
surprised.
fireproof cabinet at home, that can be okay. But yeah, you don't want to lose track of those documents.
Absolute. If you need mortgage servicing, I can help you there. If you want a self-directed IRA, I can help you there. I have an IRS tax attorney that will take on the IRS, typically for 10,000 claims against the IRS for $10,000 or more. Here's one of the things that I'm really, really proud of. I have a network of investor-friendly realtors. We all know that there's a lot of real estate agents around the country. There's not a whole lot, though, that like working with investors because it's a different breed.
Yeah,
So
I know this is one of the services I've leveraged from you a lot.
yes. Well, the unique thing about the realtors, and I've got a little over 100 right now around the country. The goal is to have an investor-friendly realtor in every major city of the United States. What's unique about them, they can not only list, sell, and property manage, but they can, on the property preservation, they can change door locks. They can clean an empty house out. They can winterize it. They can rehab it. They are your feet on the ground.
Yeah, and I'll
And
expand on that a little bit, right? So like most agents don't understand foreclosures, REOs, but this is a network of ones who kind of specialize in that. And so yeah, usually they've got their go-to local people who can handle all of that stuff when it becomes an REO. Like I know I've got one in Cincinnati that's amazing, and she, coordinated the clean out, got the locks changed, posted notices on the doors. We were going through the foreclosure process, showed up in court for me when I had to have somebody there. So those investor friendly realtors go way beyond in what they do than what people typically think of as what a realtor does, just like listing a property and selling it or whatever. So
absolute. And the other advantage, Dan, and I'm starting to see this now, and I think we're going to see a lot more of it. The realtors that are in the network, many of them work with local banks and credit unions
uh-huh.
on distressed assets. Typically a realtor's investor base is in their own backyard. So many of my realtors are reaching out to me with their off-market items, be both notes as well as REOs. letting me know about it. And then I'm able to go back to this little section. If that realtor happens to be in Idaho selling or has access to distressed inventory, then I can let you know about it. So it's more than just having an investor-friendly realtor that can be your feet on the ground. They can also be a good source for everybody for product. Also have a network of investor-friendly, quote, attorneys that can help with foreclosures, evictions, bankruptcy matters, pre-purchase document review, etc. Also do skip tracing. And a couple of items that are going to be in the new website is I can do door knocking. And it's a unique way that I can either do what's called a 1 visit or a 3 visit. And basically the 1 visit is exactly what it says. If the occupants aren't there, then the server will leave whatever documents you've asked me to give them on the premises. The 3 visit is they go out the first time, there may not be anybody there. The server will try and readjust his schedule, thinking when he may be able to catch the people on the second time. And if he doesn't do it on the second time, there's the third time. And then if there's still nobody there, then they will leave the documents.
Yeah, and that can be real helpful in doing loss mitigation, because I've had situations where no one can get a hold of the borrower, but you kind of know they're there. And, you know, I'll send them letters and do different things. But sometimes if you want to send them a letter just to initiate communication, having someone hand deliver it can be a lot more impactful than just mailing it out.
And back in the old days, even the investor-friendly realtors would do that. Mm-hmm. But because of COVID, because of potentially being shot, a lot of the realtors don't want to do it any longer. So you might as well use a professional company that does this every day. A couple of the other services that are available, I can do credit restoration. If you want to start a LLC or form a corporation, I can help you there. If you need force-placed insurance, I can help you there. Mm-hmm. So these are some of the newer services that are being offered. Also on the website, and this is something need a drum roll. This was just put on.
Oh yeah, when you won the best of notes. Congratulations on that, by the way. Yeah.
And my web designer just put this on today.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was from noteinvestor.com, which I believe is Tracy Rui's.
Correct.
Site. I think she organized that. She's been on the podcast before as well. So probably about due to have her back on at some point too. Now I think about it.
So I'm real proud of that. I've even put it on my email now. So once again, my email is dbaldwin@baldwinadvisorygroup.com. I might mention when you want to order something, yes, I do have the order forms on the website, but you're more than welcome to email me, like Dan does, instead of using the form. Just tell me in the email, I need an exterior BPO and here's the address. Or I need a realtor in Cincinnati, Ohio. Here's the address. So
yeah, with me, I started doing it by email, and I know about the website, but yeah, I just get in the habit of doing it the same way.
Well, and you know, really, I like the email better because we've got a chain started on the property where I can give you updates on turn times, questions that may potentially arise. Mm-hmm. So by all means, feel free to email. And on the contact, I love my slogan right here. It says, if real estate's your game, Dickie Baldwin is the name.
Nice. I like that.
I got creative on the slogans and things. But anyway, that's what the Bag Network is all about, Dan.
Well, that's great, Dickie. No, thanks for sharing all that. I mean, that's really a huge help because I get a lot of due diligence questions and, people are never sure what to do. So it is kind of nice to have kind of one place to go to get the various services are out there because there are a lot of options in how you can go about it. So.
Absolute. And I said, I put the site mainly together for people that just didn't know where to go to get something done. But it's evolved. I mean, you were one of my very first customers, and you are much more than a one-off guy.
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's definitely come a long way. Yeah, because remember when you first started and we're just kind of putting everything together. It's definitely.
Well, what it boils down to, Dan, is when you're an investor, you need to put a team together, and because you can't do it all. It's just like a title search. People say, well, I can go to the courthouse and do that. Well, if you're not an experienced person to go to the courthouse and pull documents, chances are you don't know what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's why you want a title company pulling that stuff and then an attorney reviewing it on top of it. So yeah, the way I'd like to approach it is, like I said, I know enough about it to be dangerous. I pull title, I like to do my own look. And a lot of times I can spot stuff or I might have questions about stuff, but then you're kind of the belt and suspenders of having somebody else look over it.
Absolute. So the bottom line is what I'm saying is to all the investors, build a team. And I'd love to be part of that team because you and I can work together as a team and utilize the network that it's taken 40 years to put together.
Yeah, that's a long time. So yeah, if you're starting out, you don't want to spend 40 years getting up and going. So you may as well skip ahead.
Well, and just like yourself, we were talking earlier before the podcast, I'm getting ready to do due diligence for a client that has over 60 assets.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not just that one off. As you grow, and Dan, you when we first met, you were just really getting started.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when we first met. I had maybe only bought a couple notes.
Yeah.
At that point, I hadn't done that much at that. I was still figuring a lot of stuff out. Well, I'm still figuring a lot of stuff out now, but yeah.
Well, and you put an article out one time, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, but coming to me and getting all of this due diligence stuff it took that pressure off of you and allowed you to go and do other things to be successful in the note industry.
Yeah, what people will find is, if you're doing 1 notes, 2 notes, 5 notes, you can kind of do everything manually. You can kind of keep a lot of stuff in your head. But when you start to scale, you really need to start handing stuff off or you're just going to get bogged down too quickly.
Absolutely.
So it kind of turns into like death by cuts with notes. So that's where you need to, to your point, have a team and farm stuff out, take stuff off your plate. You can kind of focus your time on finding deals, pricing deals, doing all the other things that aren't even part of this process that we were talking about. So cool. Well, thanks again, Dickie. Really appreciate it. Always welcome on anytime, and we'll see you next time.
Absolute. Be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Happy New Year, buddy.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.